Om Bansa Sadhu Samaya Manu Banaya Bansa Sadhu Deva Badicha Jija Me Bawa Dudo Kayo Me Bawa Subo Kayo Me Bawa Anu Redo Me Bawa Sawa Siddhi Me Shayacha Sawa Gama Susame Zidam Jayan Guru Ha 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 ho Bhagavana Sawadatta Gada Bansarma Memusa Mazavawa Mahasamaya Saduva Hompe Dorje Chang Buddha III. Om Banzar Sadhu Samaya Manupanaya Banzar Sadhu de la Varicha Chijam Me Bawa Sudo Kayo Me Bawa Subo Kayo Me Bawa Anu Redo Me Bawa Sawa Siddhi Me Jaya Sawagama Susame Sidam Shriyam Kuruhan Ha 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 ho Bhagavana Sawadatta Gada Bansarma Memusa Bazavawa Mahasamaya Saduva Hompe Dorje Chang Buddha III. Om Bansa Sadhu Samaya Manu Banaya Bansa Sadhu Vela Badicha Jija Me Bawa Sudo Kayo Me Bawa Subo Kayo Me Bawa Anu Redo Me Bawa Sawa Siddhi Me Shayacha Sawa Gama Susame Sidam Shriyam Guruham Ha 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 ho Bhagavana Sawadatta Gada Bansarma Memusa Mazavawa Mahasamaya Saduwa Hompe Dorje Chang Buddha III.
So I woke up early this morning and I was looking for something in particular. And as I got started, before I knew it, Kay came to see if I was up. And I was up. I said, yeah, I'm up. I'm just looking for one thing for my Dharma talk today. And and that was like around, I don't know, 7:30, 8 o'clock. And before I knew it, it was 11:30. And it's because, and I'm going to try to share the principles somewhere in my talk today. That when you get it, and the Buddha says that we are entering into certain states all the time, and we don't even know that we are. Does this have to stay right here? Because I can't see him.
I'm fine.
Can it come over just a little? Would that be all right? You know how?
Yeah, it works.
Okay.
Yeah, is it okay? Did you do?
If you just move out a little bit that way. Oh, this is perfect. Thank you so much. And he says that I hope I underlined it to read so you don't have to take my word for it. He says that many times we're entering into this state or the Dhammakaya state for a few seconds, and we don't know that we. And so we should take heart that something is happening, even when we can't perceive it through our sense bases that some progress is being made. We can have the confidence to know that it is being made. And so I wanted to read what he says about prajna wisdom. He says, now our prajna wisdom is analogous to the sun. Prajna wisdom illuminates without knowing it is doing so. it illuminates our original appearance, and this original appearance of ours is a formless entity. So how can I see a formless entity? What form is this form? It's formless. It does not have a specific form. It is an entity without form. The more I speak, the deeper it gets. Some disciples might ask, how can I illuminate a formless entity? How can I see a formless entity? This involves the methods we apply when exerting effort in learning the Buddha Dharma. This involves the state of jhana and how to stop the six sense bases so that they perform no function. And when the six sense bases treat all things as equal, then the state that naturally appears is the formless entity. So illumination is also function, and function is also illumination. So when we think of illumination and illuminating our minds, we're actually thinking of using the intellect to know something, you know. But he says that this is irrespective of intellect. He says that when you enter into this state, the intellect cannot even rise because the intellect is based on false appearances, or false appearances meaning impermanent comings together of things. And so he says that that's why when we enter into these states through the hearing and the receiving, not to just hear in one ear and out the other, but hearing, receiving, but maybe not able to use our worldly wisdom to break it down to understand it, but it is being developed and cultivated in us. And so cultivation is not really what we think it is, or maybe I could say we're at the beginning levels of cultivation when there's a lot of effort being put into things. But you know, we have something, at least in my generation, they call it mother wit. And mothers, this is not a ding against fathers. I'm just saying, we were just discussing it among ourselves, and we just called it mother wit, right? Because we were mothers. But we know almost instinctively or intuitively how to do something, or how to support, or how to help, or how to encourage. We're not listening to just what our child says, but there is a intuitive knowing and how to help them when they're suffering. So a child can be having a hissy fit and acting all ugly, you know, but we know that they're hurting in some way, that they are misunderstanding something, and so we know how to deal with them. And so it's kind of like a mother wit is kind of like that, but to an infinitesimal degree. And so he says this is not something that you're gonna sort out through so much thinking. And he speaks of illumination, but it's not a kind of illumination that you can work yourself into. So he helps us to think of it, and this is very good for us when we're trying our best, you know, to apply all the principles of the Dharma. And it starts to get like school, and this is not school. And so he says the more I speak, the deeper it gets. He says when the six sense bases treat all things equal, the state that naturally appears will be the formless entity. Illumination is also a function, and function is also illumination. So there's a state of a dual operation of a mutual openness. It's this kind of state. So he says, we should know that we should know the wisdom that has no awareness does not have the function of illuminating something. It also does not have an entity or form that can be illuminated. So the subject and object of illumination are both forgotten. In such a state, the unobtainable form is reality. So this kind of can kind of change our concept of what reality is. It is something that we live in the moment, but it is the life of the moment, not the thoughts of the moment. It's stepping out. It's like the difference in talking about love and being in love. And all of us have loved something or somebody. And we know that there is a very big difference. I mean, we could just talk about somebody we love until the cows come home, but that's just words. There is some other ingredient, some other property that exists that has a certain kind of life to it. And this is where we're getting more towards, less towards what we think, and more towards the function of a life and of a vitality that is the real thing. He says, you must not think that the wisdom of prajna is able to illuminate, that it produces the effect of illumination, and that the reality state is what is illuminated. To think that way is wrong, and it would entail immediately falling into the obstructive view of differentiation that ordinary people have. This is most worthy of your attention. The reality state is not a thing that is illuminated. Prajna wisdom is not a type of thing that is able to illuminate. When the wisdom that has no awareness illuminates the formless state and wisdom fuse, the concepts of subject and object are naturally left behind, and state and wisdom naturally fuse. So that is a holy mind. That state is wisdom. The wisdom is that state. So we wrestle with our notions about good and bad. This is good, this is bad. We wrestle with our differentiations constantly. And he's not saying don't consider them. He's just saying don't categorize and label them. It's a very subtle difference, but it is the difference between having realization or not. It is the difference between entering into a certain state or not. And so I think this is where we have our hardest, the hardest part of our practice is learning something and then not being able to forget about it as a learned thing, but to be able to take it up as a automatic behavioral kind of thing. So we can think about how we should love people. We can think about the right things to do for people. We can talk about all of that, but that's just the talk about it. And when we're carrying it out with an idea of the thought about it, it has already dropped out of a reality state and it's in a contrived place. And that's where we live most of our time, in contrived goodness, and contrived thought. And he says you have to go beyond that. And that's where the freedom comes, when one can just see something and see the state for well, I say see the state for what it is, but what I mean is one can be in, and there is a knowing that this state brings forth benefit and this state doesn't. We don't have to discuss it. I don't have to have a mental conversation in my head about it. You know, it's just I'm walking it out in that way. And we think that the more of that we do, the better we are. But that's a midway place. We've used language prajna to kind of help us to see that these bring about good results. These don't bring about such good results. And then we get to a middle state where we are walking out these things, but with awareness. We're walking it out with awareness. That means consciousness is still tied up in it, right? So so it's like I know when I'm good and I know when I'm bad, you know, and that's a good place to be in. It beats not knowing, you know, that's a good place, but that's not prajna wisdom is what I'm saying. That is where we've used language prajna to differentiate, but then we have to go beyond that when we've reached a place that we can think about it and transfer that into some kind of action, but we're still in the 6 and 7 consciousness states is what I'm saying. And what's coming forth are the seeds of the 8th consciousness because they're being watered. And so we're acting out of the seeds that are coming forth from consciousness. That is not prajna. So I think we're getting the idea then that prajna is not going to be anything that we can conjure up in our mind through our concepts. He said, consider the sun. The sun shines on everything, and yet it has no thought. I am shining. So prajna then is something we could say, one way of saying it is our original appearance apart from consciousness. And that's why when we do all of these, you know, we get into all these things about consciousness and about higher consciousness. And, you know, as long as consciousness is in it, know that we have not approached the platform of prajna, and we are not have not seen or not able to operate from our original appearance or our Buddha nature. Okay, I'll say that. Say it like that. And or the reality state, because it's still wrapped up in mind awareness. Does that make does that make it clearer? The mind is aware. So we're always thinking and making these differentiations. But when we start to get in this space, we have more and more times where we're not making a differentiation. So I'm saying it so that you can begin to notice it. He says, I will give you an example. If your prior thought is already gone, your next thought has not yet arisen. You have, for that space of time, clear understanding that is free of stray thoughts. Yet, know that no clarity has been attained, and you engage in a myriad of activities, but you're not attached to any of them. Then you have attained untaught natural wisdom. Thus, it would not be taught to you by a master, but you're simply guided to it by the master so as to attain or to realize. That's why he says, when you sit down to meditate, it is like what the sixth patriarch master said: don't ponder, don't conceptualize, don't seek, and don't investigate. Relying and depending on nothing, just be natural. It is telling you not to pretend that your so-called ordinary wisdom is prajna wisdom, and that through such ordinary wisdom, you can find your original nature. You should not have any movement of thought. Your prior thought has already gone. Your next thought has not yet arisen. And at this in-between state, you will naturally attain the state of untaught, natural wisdom. However, this is momentary because you are of an ordinary mind with common forces that have accumulated, over continual lifetimes. So even if you see this state of untaught natural wisdom, it will immediately be covered up. However, I tell you that perhaps you will not even be able to see. It can be said that the untaught natural state of wisdom has glittered a number of times in the minds of each of you disciples here. However, you have not seen it because it is a state where your prior thought has gone and your next thought has not yet jumped forward. You might say, I just experienced it. I went searching for that state. You went to search for it, but the time you went searching for it was exactly the time that you were engaging in delusive thoughts. It's like searching for a baby who is tied on the back. Doing that is incorrect. You should truly attain the state where the prior thought is gone. The next thought is not yet arisen. In such an in-between state, you are not attached to anything. You enter what is called a state of awareness of clear empty that is free of thought and is without attachment to being free of thought. So I think that's one reason why, you can sit down to study Dharma and you look up in 4 hours, because you enter a state of clear awareness that is free of thought and is without attachment to being free of thought. That's the Dharmakaya. It's not inside your body. It's not outside your body. It's really nowhere the mind can grasp. The ordinary thinking mind can grasp. It's impossible. And he says that means that you are unattached to such understanding or awareness, and without being attached to it, you engage in a myriad of activities, but are not attached to any of them. And so what happens is when we have this experience of being in this reality state where we start to be able to enter into it more and more frequently. And the more we enter into it, the more it becomes our natural state. That means that we can operate and do the other things that we have to do in the course of the day. But we can begin to abide for longer and longer periods of time in this state where we're not attached to anything. And that's what allows us then to do things that we like to do or do things that we don't want to do, but we can do them and carry them out without our mind being all wrapped up in it, tied in it. I like it, I don't like it. And you can execute so many things in the course of the day without there being any entrapment in our activities. So this is what the reality state is, that you can be engaged in a myriad of activities throughout the day, but not be attached to any of them. We still go about handling all kinds of matters as usual while abiding in that state of prajna. One could even expound sutras and Dharma, yet still abide in the state of prajna. Only this can be called true prajna wisdom. So you must first understand the state of initial breakthrough into the truth of your original appearance. That's divided into seeing, awakening to it, jhana, and wisdom. This is very profound. After seeing and awakening, have you succeeded? No, you still need jhana. You have to imperturbably abide in this state. So one thing that we can be looking at is how we go through our activities in the course of the day. Can we just do them? Do we have to get so wrapped up in them in such a tizzy and a whirl spin and thinking about this and think about that and we should do this, and can we like just move forward and do them, but without having an attachment or grasping to it? We bring so much drama to every single thing that we have to do. It becomes, every activity becomes like a dog chasing its tail. But can we, are we, so noticing, that's how we can know where we are in the Dharma. It's not like just hearing about something, but we can put it up against our moment to moment experience. And we can either know where we are or know what we have to pull back from to come to a middle space, or know how we need to advance or what direction we need to go into to enter into our goal or our objective. So I ask you to think right now. And when you're carrying out your day-to-day activities, how do you carry them out? It's not just carrying them out. It's not just get her done. It's not just, but there is a how that either supports your practice or it nullifies. It nullifies, I won't say nullifies your practice, but it nullifies your understanding of what the practice is, and so think about it when you're doing things, when you're executing, taking care, when you're handling your business. How do you handle the business? Can you just, if something has to move, can you just pick it up and move it? No, that's it. Does it have to be a story that goes with it? Does it have to be a story that you have to share with 15 people? Does it have to be, just how do you have to get all wrapped up into it, looking at it, deciding what parts of it you like and what parts of it you don't like, So this kind of helps us to know, if we look at our actions, our three karmas, our thought, speech, and our action throughout the day. He's giving us some direction on the signs and the indicators of advancement. And we can look and see, oh, I do a good job at it, but I bring so much drama to it, or everything, I have so much to say about every single thing, and start to get a sense of the energy that gets stirred up when that's going on. And then you can just remind yourself, oh, I'm heading away from the way of prajna, of abiding in my original nature, and I'm fabricating a story right now. I'm creating a drama right now, and the only one who can stop that is you. Only I can stop my drama. You can't stop it. You might want to help me, and I appreciate you wanting to help me. And sometimes I want you to be able to do something because I can't do it at that moment, you know. But the bottom line is that I have to keep looking at it, seeing it until, and really seeing it for what it is. And then I can put forth the right effort, you know, to sometimes I think thoughts and I'm not even aware that I'm thinking that thought until I read something or I see something and it triggers me, and I remember something that I did this morning and it just told me where I was and what I was doing. I said, dang, that's what I did this morning, you know. And when that happens, it's not for us to feel the wrong action to take towards that. Wrong meaning it's just not going to be beneficial. It's not going to help you. That's all that wrong in this case means, is to then start berating myself or beating myself up over it. It's just like instead we should be clicking our heels and thanking the God, because now we realize it. We see something and that gives us a basis for making some correction in the future. You know, but if we don't see it, we can't correct it. You know, but when we can see it and it's not what we want, it's not giving us the desired result and it's not taking them, then we have a basis by which we can remember and do something different the next time. So he says that we need jhana. Jhana is described in, or the steps of jhana described in the earliest teachings, is with applied and sustained thought, one enters and abides in the first jhana. Now, so now you got applied and sustained thought. On one hand, on the other hand, you have do not think, do not conceptualize. So you know, like okay, so like what is it then? Applied and sustained thought. I mean, these are two like completely opposite instructions. One is with applied and sustained thought, one enters and abides. And the other is do not think, do not conceptualize. So can you see why people could be confused on what what one should do? Okay, so where would applied and sustained thought occur?
In visualization practice, mantra repetition, leading into our meditation, where we're applying thought to lead us to hopefully a sustained state that goes beyond the thought. Ultimately, we let go the tool, right? When we get there, but to get us there, we apply thought.
Well, maybe not when we get there, but to get there. So there does take some thinking, there does take some application, and then he says, then we let it go. Yeah. So the mind it's like being around a person who has on a fragrance, you know, and if you sit with them long enough, that fragrance gets all in your clothing. It fills the room, it gets in your clothing, and after a while, you have the abiding fragrance there, you know. And so there is that initial stage of having to apply something. That's why we have language prior, right? And then we have contemplative illumination. And we have to contemplate certain things. And then we just let it all go. And it's like if you have put some dirt in water and you shake it all up, the water is all cloudy, right? And then you sit it there and you just let it rest, and then the dirt will start to drop down to the bottom, and then your water is clear at the top. And so it's kind of like that process. What you find will happen, however, is you start to know what that state is. And after a while, as soon as you sit, you can just drop right in, because you are used to dropping, and you can reach that kind of intermediate state that can usher you into the reality state. But you can't just get to the reality state by your own efforts and by your own pressing in with the mind. And it helps you to have a kind of connotation of what it means to abide in emptiness. It starts to, how you got a dog in the fight around everything, but now you got an opinion about everything, you got a view about everything, you have a fear about most things, you have anxiety about the future, all of this, just the mind moving. And so we're learning how to just drop that kind of mind that's attached to this outer awareness. In order to think about something, there has to be a specific directing towards that thing. So when he talks about all of our aggregates and our 6 bases being equal, that's what it means. It means that don't take your mind to a particular thing. And because now you have one spike, that's where your attention is. And he says that's what causes all of our problems. So working at having an equanimous mind doesn't actually mean that you're not thinking, not deliberately not thinking about anything. It just means that you're not accentuating any one thing. And when you don't accentuate that one thing, it just drops down along with everything else. So don't worry thinking that, well, then I'll become mindless. You won't become mindless, but everything will just be equal. And when everything is equal, you don't have straight thoughts spiking, don't have spikes. So maybe you could even keep that picture in your mind when something causes an agitation, causes an agitation. If it's something that is painful, whether that's physically painful or mentally painful, there's agitation. But it could be something that's pleasant, and it still is an agitation of the mind, even pleasant things. So it doesn't entail you sitting like that, like you're in a trance, this prajna wisdom. And we shouldn't confuse that with prajna wisdom. So sometimes we see something, we catch a glimpse of our original appearance, and wisdom comes. Sometimes there is sometimes one awakens to it and then sees. That's why we talk about it, so you can recognize something. Oh, you can have the wrong idea when something's happening in your practice. You can think a good thing is not a good thing. You can think a not good thing is a good thing because we're so used to differentiating in that way. But when we drop into that space of non-duality, or you could call it space of equality, then we might understand something coming out of that in an entirely different way. And we have judged it from our limited view, our limited understanding. But now we've just touched something that's unlimited that allows us to see and understand things in a completely different way. Now that brings its own little bit of confusion. Now you start getting mixed up on what's good and what's bad, but it's a good problem to have because you're moving towards something that's not based on memory, maybe not even just based on the experience that you have had in this particular life. We're so attached to this life, then the limitation of birth to the death of this life, that we think that's all there is to life, you know. And if we become too attached to it, we will not be able to go any further than what the knowledge and experience of this life affords. He says, when you can engage in a myriad of activities but not be attached to any of them, then you have attained untaught natural wisdom. So the six consciousnesses come into contact with six sense objects, right? Eyes see things, ears hear things, tongue tastes things, tactile, experiences, feels things, you know, thoughts, mind thinks things. So it's like that. And then the mind differentiates. And that's how we get ourselves into a worldly state. And we regard all of these thoughts as being ours, and that gives rise to affliction. Suffering then emerges. It says the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, they are free of delusions because they have left elusive thoughts and they abide in the dominant nature of true emptiness. It says we say the word abide, but it's not really like abiding in. That is all there is for them. This is the difference between them and living beings. Buddhas and Bodhisattvas stay in prajna wisdom, teaching, transforming, and saving living beings. And they pervade all Dharma worlds and the 6 realms of reincarnation, including the Sahara, being free of delusive thought. They teach others. Therefore, we must go beyond words to where the path of language is cut off, where you yourself directly attain realization and awakening. Here I'm telling all of you that to realize your original nature, you must cut off the path of language and extinguish attachment to mental activity. As long as you use your mind to think things over, don't even imagine that you will see your original nature. Now, when I read something like this, first breaks it down so that I can kind of mentally get on the same page. Then it goes beyond what we can understand. And right away the mind says what?
I don't understand.
I don't understand. Right away the mind says, I don't understand. And then the mind goes into all its thinking, trying to break it down and trying to understand. But he says, no need. He says, the master does what? He guides you to it. or if we could just,
Rest in that.
rest in that.
Wouldn't that be where faith and wisdom find their balance?
Yeah. So most of us, we don't have a wisdom problem, we have a faith problem. The dirty F word. And so he says, well, that's okay. He doesn't mind you having that issue. He just says, part of investigating something is trying it. It is putting it to the test. It is following. It is following. He says, as soon as practitioners enter the door, they are all transmitted Buddha Dharma. Why are some special dharmas not transmitted to them? Differences do exist among Buddha dharmas. These are teachings. Because there are great ones and small ones. There are peripheral teachings and there are core teachings. I tell you from the perspective of worldly phenomena, there is a difference among Buddha dharmas. Of course, from the position of absolute truth, all dharmas are one dharma, but conventionally, there's a difference. It's not easy to realize the stage of supreme enlightenment, and that's why there are classifications. He says there are supreme dharmas whereby one becomes accomplished within 2 hours. It's not the great perfection, it's not the Dorje. There's also a dharma that enables one to instantly generate the power of tumo. It's not the tumo of the yoga division. He says, I can't say what sex those dharmas belong to, at least today. Of course, they are inseparable from and belong just to this huge sect called Buddhism. However, with dharmas, it is just a matter of corresponding with the condition and the practitioner's spiritual capacity. Which dharma one can receive in practice depends on one's capacity as a dharma vessel. This involves the respect of the practitioner, the respect that he has towards Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, the sincere faith and the resolve of the practitioner that he has generated towards a master who is truly one of great holiness, and the effort of the practitioner to make progress in his or her own cultivation and practice. One will receive whichever dharma accords with one's conduct, attain virtue, and state of realization. And this is a matter of never erring cause and effect. Although dharmas do not differentiate them, you differentiate them through your own conduct. The difference between your learning a certain dharma and not learning a certain dharma is due to your own conduct. There is not that there are differences among the dharma. It's just a matter of dark clouds blocking the sun. Hence, learning with a sincere heart, treating your practice earnestly, and maintaining great compassion as one's foundation is what is most important. Of course, another aspect involves whether you will experience any beneficial effects after you've learned a dharma. And that's why some dharmas cannot be transmitted to you. If they were transmitted to you, problems might occur after transmission. You might not be able to practice a certain dharma. You could even end up entering a demonic state due to mistaken practice. Or because your state of understanding is not high, you might even speak recklessly about a supreme and profound dharma. Thus, there's generally no great or small as far as the absolute truth of dharma is concerned. However, there are very large variations among dharmas when it comes to the process making progress in one's practice. For example, there are some dharmas that enable you to ascend to the world of ultimate bliss, only if you practice them with utmost effort throughout your entire life. Conversely, there are other dharmas that enable you to ascend to the world of ultimate bliss through practicing them a few days. And then he went on to talk about some dharma that he spoke of while he was giving this discourse. And he says, I really should not have spoken about this, but because there are 3 of you in this assembly who have cultivated yourselves well, I must impart it so that you can hear it. It is for your benefit, just you 3. You know, and so I remember one day when I was there with Buddha Master, and he said to me, I'm gonna sometime in the future, I'm gonna give so and so an initiation. And he told them, when I give that initiation in the future to that person, she can also be there. And then he looked at me and he said, not because you have earned it or have the karma, but because he does. But if you were there with him at the time that I give it to him, then you also will get it. So I think about things like that, and where there is naturally a dharma that corresponds to each one of us. So we can hear a lot of different dharmas, but it's the one that corresponds with our actual state is the one by which we will be able to make progress. With respect to what dharma you should learn, there naturally is a dharma that corresponds to you. This is within observation by Buddhists and Bodhisattvas. As such, they bestow to all of you a kind of reward of good fortune, a reward of good fortune that transcends this world. Therefore, what dharma one should learn depends on what karmic conditions one has. And this is the unerring relationship of cause and effect. However, remember that all such karmic conditions are the fruits that yield or that come from causes planted by your own thoughts and conduct, and that means that can change. You're completely capable of transforming the opportunity to learn a small dharma into the opportunity to learn a great dharma. A great dharma. Nothing in the universe is predestined. Rather, all phenomena arise from the coming together of causes and conditions. Therefore, you should not think that your spiritual capacity is inferior and not up to standard. That would be wrong. In the end, no matter which dharma you learn, you can, based on prajna, achieve the state of great utilization of the whole and naturally return to the truth of oneness. Now, I read an article in Popular Mechanics. Now, when I was young, Popular Mechanics has been out a long time. And it was about mechanics, like, but now Popular Mechanics is like really, like a high level scientific journal. And so I have resubscribed to it. And I read an article on Friday, and it was talking about proofs that scientists have come up through certain, and I don't even know how to explain it, it's so high level science. But what it was saying basically is that the human mind, where we are in evolution within the human consciousness, that we are able to tap in to the entire universe. And it says that it has been an idea that has been floating around for 50 years, but they have just finished conducting some experiments with the mind, and so they're coming to the conclusion that we have the capacity to tap in to all, or to align our knowing with every single thing in the universe. And all it takes is directing towards it, and that we can tap into it. It isn't amazing. That's what the Buddha says it is. That's why he says, I don't like know everything, but anything I turn my mind to, that thing I can penetrate. So science is catching up with some of this. We don't think it's so till science tells us it's so, but science is just finding out, more about what we call our Buddha nature, our original unsullied Buddha nature, our capacity. So we compare our evolution to lesser beings, right? So we compare my evolution as a human to that of a monkey, of a dog, of a worm, we go that way. But what Dharma allows us to do is to go that way. So that's why I always say I'm not trying to be a better human. I'm trying to transcend humanness, and which is like a cloud or an obscuration that is concealing my true Buddha nature, the ultimate nature of who I really am. So I want to close today by reading you from page 1 of the study, because sometimes we have to keep it in check. We have to keep remembering something. He said, today all of you are sitting here together. All of you present here are very kind-hearted. You have a deep foundation in Buddha Dharma. With respect to worldly matters, at least, you're people who benefit society. And this is a Dharma joy resulting from the coming together of good karmic condition. This is your karmic reward of good fortune. Among all of you who are present, there are human beings here, and there are also other living beings. However, none of you know what a human being is all about, or what exactly the world is even all about. That's because you've fallen into confusion. Being confused, you do not understand what the universe is all about, what relationship all these things have with people, why living beings exist, why you exist, why all of these life forms in nature are vividly right here in front of us, and what the interrelationship of everything is, what you are all about, and what the absolute truth is regarding living beings, mind, Buddha, and the universe. But after you disciples completely finish listening to me and impart the Dharma to you, you will be able to understand what such things are. Why there is impermanence that entails continual births and deaths, why there is a fundamental nature that was not born and that does not die. Furthermore, you will understand that by relying on Dharma, we are totally capable of transforming the sufferings of life and death into the happiness of neither arising nor ceasing. For the sake of the eternal bliss of living beings, I will use the Heart Sutra to impart the absolute truth, giving you an opportunity to become a liberated holy being and live in this eternal happiness. And the most important thing is that we have to let go of our selfishness. Only then can we truly cut off self-attachment and enter such a holy state. I love the confidence that he gives us, that we can be free from all of the things that bind us, all of the things that point us back to ourselves, a sense of self, all of the things that separate us from everything, so everything and everybody becomes something or someone to contend with, someone to fix, someone to correct, someone to do something for, someone to do something about, someone to do something to, something to take care of. He says, but when we come to know our undivided nature, that we are none other than the universe itself, then we will see that there is nothing that we have to actually step forward to do, that all of it is wrapped up in us. And when we start to get this in mind, we'll start to see conditions change. But first there are little things, little changes, little shifts, but later they'll become big changes and big shifts, because we will change the nature of appearances by our own mind, instead of our mind responding to the illusory, meaning temporary, impermanent conditions that we see. And that's the game changer for us. That's when the brightness will really start to come forward, and we'll no longer fear any man, nor will we fear any circumstance, because we can see that it is based in emptiness, and that what we see is a false or changing appearance. So today I just wanted to remind us of what our purpose for this whole investigation is, and to encourage us to develop faith, to arouse faith. And, and I think I've talked about it for like maybe the last 4 Dharma talks about arousing faith, and how we need things to be proven to us, before we can accept it. But this is almost like someone saying it's right here, and if you could take your attention off of that one thing, draw your attention back, you'd be able to see it right there in front of you. And so we do see on different levels. We see the truth of these teachings, but our fundamental perspective or view has to shift. It's not like we take and sprinkle a little bit of Dharma right there, and we sprinkle a little bit of Dharma right there, and we feel better today. It requires a fundamental shift in how we hold everything. We have to see through the lens of the Dharma, as opposed to just sprinkling a little bit of Dharma on our view. And that's where it becomes difficult for us. So you do get to a place that you can get a little bit of benefit, but not much. But it has nothing to do with the insufficiency of the Dharma. It just has to do with our own state. So try to arouse yourself in the Dharma. Just take one little thing every morning and just contemplate one little thing. And in contemplating one little bit of truth, you will gradually build yourself up so that you can actually hold these truths in a way that when they don't work out for you the way that you want them to in your life, you know that there is no failure or there in the Dharma being true. It is just that we're not able to, we're not perched at the platform where we can see the truth of it. But knowing that as we continue, and when I say persevere, I don't mean struggle. I'm trying to help us give up this notion of struggle. And then we can see the baby that's tied on our back. But we have to give up this notion of struggle. And just observing our behaviors throughout the week, observing our thoughts. Without condemnation, I'm saying just observe. And when that painful feeling arises when we observe, we can put it against the Dharmic principle and know whether that painful feeling is our friend or whether that painful feeling, is our enemy. Sometimes what is very painful is the best thing that can happen for us because it turns out to truly be our way of escape. I mean, if I didn't know the experience of pain, like I would deal with my daughter all the time about the stove, like don't touch hot, don't touch hot. But she doesn't know what hot was until she touched it. So now when she touched it, then she understood what hot was. And I never had to worry about her going anywhere near the stove after that. She didn't get burned bad, but she felt the pain and now she has a reference for hot. So sometimes we actually have to go through some experiences to really put us in the place that we can benefit and we can shift our mind. Hopefully we don't have to have that many bad experiences, but it's in that way that I appreciate every unfortunate experience I have as well. If it gives me compassion for other people and it gives me a sense of gratitude for what I do have. And it lets me know that I can handle the whole spectrum, from pain to pleasure. So we will develop a kind of equanimity around experience, around life experience in this kind of way. Or we broaden our boundaries, and we won't be so, what's that word when people can't handle anything?
Wimps.
Yeah, we won't be wimps. We'll be able to handle whatever happens in the course of the day. There's a song we used to sing that says, I'm more than able to accomplish what concerns me today. It's a kind of fearlessness that develops in me. I'm more than able to handle anything that comes my way. I'm more than able. Anybody remember the rest of the words? to do more than I could even dream. I'm more than able to be just what I want to be. The floor is open if there's anything you'd like to share today or to say. I'm glad to see Bill here today. You know,
I'm grateful for quickness drill.
we grateful for
Quickness drill,
quickness drills.
yeah, we have it in football.
You're grateful and
Yeah, it's absolutely the best thing that ever happened to me.
quickness drills.
Yeah,
What does that mean?
well, when you see fire in the window, get out of the burning
Get out
building.
quick.
Yeah.
I was telling you.
They always did.
Tell you.
I played on Vanderbilt football.
Uh-huh.
I really,
So that's all he got to say about that.
Yeah.
Now his home, he has an RV. He lives in a park, and his home caught on fire.
yeah,
And this is his attitude. He's glad about quickness drills.
I was
because
trained early.
he was able to get out of there. You know.
On the time, hey, when it was.
When we leave today, we'll all be going back to our home, but not him. He's going back to a hotel because we're still looking for a trailer for him, you know. But to have that kind of mind, that's what I'm talking about. You know, we can find our inspiration anywhere, and all of us possess the Buddha nature. That's what I mean.
That's the importance of practice before
Yeah,
you need it.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I hate, really, I mean.
That was great. Thank you, Bill.
I think
You
it's a
go.
beautiful time for us to be able to recognize the power of connected humanity and the oneness of all beings that so many people have experienced so many things lately, but the right person at the right time so often shows up without even knowing what their purpose is in the moment. The deep gratitude we have for that unexplainable connection to something well beyond our comprehension, that the right moment, the right person, the right situation will show up just when you need that, and how that could help me personally develop that level of faith and clarity. The unexplainable, that doesn't need to be explainable.
I think it also helps us to see.
Oh, that's me, I'm like,
Quickly.
I apologize.
I think it also helps us to see where we need to work. You know, what things we need to work on, because we can know something so clearly. You know, we know it, but being able to live it in the moment is really the thing. So, you know, if we didn't have situations and people to deal with, there'd be no way we could become bodhisattvas. You know. So what if we thought this week that everybody who came, you know, who we encountered, who gave us a problem or an issue this week, that they were like a deva in disguise, because they gave us a chance to cultivate patience, or to practice generosity, or to, you know, accept defeat and give them, you know, the victory, let them win, whatever. What if we thought about everything? Okay, we won't say this week. How about one day? One day this week, that no matter what news we heard, good news, bad news, in between, people we didn't want to see or deal with, but we saw all of them as our good fortune that allows us to cultivate and develop bodhicitta. Let's see how that works for us. So that's our homework assignment. You can pick whichever day you want. You can't pick the day after the day has happened. You have to make the aspiration that morning, and then whatever comes, that day, that's how you have to hold everything, and see how that affects us. You only have to do it one day out of the 7, okay. The rest of the day you can just be yourself, but this one day, and let's see what kind of conversation we have. Okay, so I'll give you lots of days. So we'll do that next Sunday. Okay, instead of Wednesday, to give you more days to choose. To get your courage up. Yeah. Okay, anyone else?
So hold everything as,
Your teacher.
An opportunity to practice everything that you encounter.
Not, well, but more than an opportunity to practice, because like every time somebody, just give me an opportunity to practice, so we can, but not with that kind of view. But I mean, honestly, seeing whatever came with the gratitude that without these experiences, there's no way that I could ever reach my goal of developing bodhicitta and becoming a bodhisattva. That's a little bit more than seeing everything as my teacher.
Giovanni has his hand up.
Yes, Giovanni.
Go ahead, Giovanni, you can unmute if you'd like to speak.
Thank you. I think what Dina said, she said the right person shows up in my life. I was gonna say, or the wrong person shows up in my life to get me to see what I like what we're talking about. But I think like we're saying like I'm saying the same thing as her, but in my mind I'm like, because I mean throughout my week last week, my narrative in my head was always like, oh, the wrong person is making me feel a certain way, or the wrong person is showing up and I'm really uncomfortable, and how hypersensitive I am to that. And putting space there has been a challenge, but it has also been rewarding because there's consistent just contemplation and sitting with what's going on within me. So it's been good. There was a joke there, the wrong person, but it didn't quite come out right. Anyway, thank you.
I remember when I was a mortgage banker and some people came in to get a loan. And of course, the mortgage banker, they just have a certain amount of money and they just keep loaning it out. And then they sell that contract to a bank and the bank replenishes their money and they make another loan. So it's like a in between, person. And so I remember I had arranged this loan and the bank was gonna buy the loan. And at the last minute, I mean the very last minute, like the day of settlement, the money didn't come over to the title company. So I, as the mortgage, as the mortgage broker could not settle on the loan. And I was upset. I'm tearing up the place. I'm laying everybody, I'm cursing people out. I'm carrying on, because sitting at settlement, waiting, to close, and I'm supposed to have the money at settlement, and the bank who was buying it had backed out. So I'm trying to fix it behind the scenes and not tell them what's happening, and then finally I have to go in and tell them that something, in underwriting, as underwriting did their last review on the day of settlement, they changed their mind and they weren't going to settle on this loan. I felt so bad. You could have bought me for a penny. I felt so bad, but those people were so sweet and they were so kind and they said, well, something will come along, and they were about to lose the property too, you know, and they said, well, we just believe something will happen for us, and we don't hold that against you, and it was so nice. Then I got mad with them, like, you need to be raising hell, you need to be, you know, calling down to the bureau or something, and I could not understand how they could be, you know. They said, well, I guess they just decided it wasn't a good deal for them. It was, you know, and we can understand that. And it turns out that they did get a reprieve at the last moment because they were going to foreclosure, and somebody saw merit in the property and bailed them out. But I never, ever forgot, you know, the dignity and I mean, and the joy. They actually had joy in that moment, you know, instead of just losing their wits. You know, I was losing mine because it wasn't that I couldn't help them. I also lost a very big commission. I'm sure that was like if it wasn't number one, it was definitely number two on my, you know, in my thinking. But I never forgot how they really lived the life that they talked about, because, you know, I was Christian and they were Christian, and it was all of this good talk, and, you know, but in the moment when it really, really counted, they were able to live the life that they talked about. And it never left me, you know. And so that's what I'm talking about. We've got to really be able to live this life. And it takes going through things. I don't know how much weight I can lift until I start trying to live. And then we get to know, you know. Yeah. Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Somebody close us out. Offer up the dedicate the merit of today's practice.
We dedicate the merit, if there be any, for practice together, to all beings across all realms, for freedom, for liberation. Humble gratitude for the Dharma. May it purify all beings. May it purify all of us. May it be shared equally. Humbleness and gratitude.
So much.